everybody. Welcome back to View from the Top podcast, where we help growth-minded men who want momentum and accountability in their business, their family, their faith, and their finances get through the valleys and up the mountains to their very own View from the Top. Thank you so much for listening in today. We appreciate that you're here. My name is Wally, and I've got Big A in the studio with me. Big A, how's your day going so far?
Wally, so far, so good. I was just thinking about our opening. This is our own show, and I have a question about our own opening. Do you want accountability or do you need accountability? You said people that desire momentum. I know you desire momentum. Do you want accountability or do you need accountability?
I would go with both. Yeah. I would say I don't always want it, but that's really when I need it.
Yeah, I think I need it about 90% of the time, and I desire it about 10% of the time.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, but we need it at the end of the day.
Yeah. Man, things are good. Beautiful in Nashville today. No complaints here. It's good.
Yeah. Hey, we since we moved to Tennessee, we did the thing that everybody does when you move someplace new. Hey, you should come visit us. And we've had literally Sonia and I were working on I did this thing called the marriage game plan. Once I get it all finished, maybe we'll offer up as a download to everybody.
I don't know if I want to play that or not.
Yeah, it's called the marriage game plan. And it has different components to it. But one of them is kind of like annual, quarterly planning as a couple, kind of a worksheet, kind of work through and ask questions to each other. And it actually plays off some of the questions in our spouse survey that we have on the website at View from the Top under resources. But so I took it a little further than that, and I've just been working on it for a while. But part of that is the financial aspect, as well as kind of we plan out our schedule. We're already halfway into this year, and we started looking at like what the first half was, and started looking at the second half, and then started realizing that, man, we actually are starting to plan already into the first half of 2024. But while we're doing this, we're looking at like, normally we travel. In the past, we have gone places, and that's what our schedule's been filled up with. But this year, so far, we've had way more people coming to our house that we've hosted than we've actually gone and traveled and gone somewhere else ourselves. And that makes me tired, and I feel a little stressed out sometimes.
You feel tired? You feel more stressed and tired when people come to see you? Is it because all the things that's got to be established and clean the house and buy the food and prepare and get ready? And the other way, like they're catering to you and now you're kind of catering to them.
Yeah, I think that definitely plays into it. I think my personality does too, a little bit. More introverted. I'm situationally extroverted, and which is great. I can have conversations and be a normal fun human being, but for me to get energy, I've got to have downtime and time to myself. And so those situations have created stress for me. What about you?
What causes me stress? That you've been here 18 months and you still don't have the Southern drawdown. I mean, you don't say y'all, you don't say buggy, you don't say hose pipe. You call
parking hole.
Parking. Yeah. I mean, well, Brooke's the only one I know that does that. I don't know about that, but we got to work on your Southern drawl a little bit more. You still got some of that New York, Michigan kind of stuff going on. So I don't know. We'll work.
I say y'all, and I think I'm doing pretty well sometimes. What about you?
But
what causes stress for you?
Financial stuff can, but I feel like over the years I've learned to manage that. The thing that causes me the most stress is health concerns. And really not even for myself. We're going through a pretty tough battle with one of my girls right now related to their health. And it was kind of top secret for a while, but she's made it widely known that, she's got a major health concern. And I want to tell you, man, that keeps me up at night, right? And I know it shouldn't, and I try not to, but Robin and I've talked about it at length, and my dad was that way. My dad worried over the simplest things regarding health. This is funny, Kevin, you're going to laugh at this. Like we couldn't have a coffee table when I was a kid. we couldn't have a bike till we were about 7 or 8 years old. No swing set because you could fall off those swings, and stairs. Like, we weren't going to live in a house with stairs. My dad's like, it would kill him. And I think I've learned some of that. I think
You
I've been,
have, you have. I was
I
at your house a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and I don't know what I was there for. And but your family was there. You had
yeah,
some grandkids that were
yeah,
younger,
yeah.
and man, they started going up and down those stairs, and you're like, hey, not the stairs.
It's those things stress me out. Like, I can deal with a major real estate development project and not give me the amount of stress than my 6-year-old granddaughter running up the stairs. It's
Oh
just
yeah,
like, slow down, you're going to fall and break your neck.
yeah.
But yeah, I think that is. I wonder if it's possible to get those type of stressful situations under management for us, like, because I've been that way my whole life and I've never really worked on it. Now that we're talking about it, I'm feeling convicted. I don't know that maybe I shouldn't have done deeper work on learning to manage that stress better.
Maybe, but I think there's different levels of stress. Like,
Yeah.
we get the opportunity to talk to a lot of guys and a lot of business guys, and they come with some of them come with some real serious, you know, situations where they've literally stressed themselves out. And some of it's business related, some of it's family related. But we're going to talk actually about some things today, I think, related to some stress, some stress zones, things that cause us stress. And I think, though, that there are a little bit of stress. I don't necessarily think is bad, but I think if it starts to control us, we definitely ought to be
Yeah.
doing something about it.
But it
But
starts keeping you up or waking you up, right? And that's happened to me a number of times over the
mm,
years. And usually it's related to health concerns. My mom had some real challenges for a couple of years related to her health. And I lost my sister a year and a half ago, had a real bout with cancer and lost her. And those kind of things wake me up or keep me up. But you mentioned a lot of the guys that we deal with. Would you not say that the vast majority of the pressures that guys are facing today related to stress are are promoted by financial needs? Uh, Sometimes it's with their relationship, but a lot of it's financially related.
I I think, yeah, I think a lot of, especially if you're
Mm,
married, um, you've got what they say, three major things you fight about: money, sex, and kids. Pretty much are the
mm.
things that people
I
deal
don't know if
with.
it's
And
in that order. We'd
I
have
don't
to
know.
talk through the order.
Well, maybe I don't know. But we definitely got some challenges with financial stress that I think um, that we deal with in our families and in our businesses. Quite
Mm,
often. Um, I was just a couple weeks ago sitting down with somebody and talking with them about kind of their. It was in one of our mastermind groups actually, and he was man in the middle, and he brought up the fact that he can do sales for his business real well, like he does great at sales. He's great at customer relationships. He's good with his team, his people, his employees. Um, and but when it comes to the financial operation of the business, he's just never learned and trained himself. So all of their stress in their business and in their marriage right now is all around the financial component. And we're going to talk through some things about.
You used a term just a minute ago that I don't think you've said on this call. Explain what man in the middle is.
Yeah. So in our peer advisory groups, our ISI, our Insurance Iron Mastermind groups, every week that we meet, there's usually 8 to 10 of us on the call that are in our groups. And there's one guy, sometimes there's two, but sometimes there's one guy that do what is called man in the middle. And it's kind of their turn. We just take turns, and they get some specific time on the call. It's usually anywhere from 15, 20 minutes. Sometimes, depending on the call, it's 30 to 40 minutes. And they just get an opportunity to show up and to present. Typically, it's some type of a challenge or situation that they're either currently facing or planning on facing. That could be a business deal. That could be, a relationship with a partner. It could be, a scaling or growing thing. It could be financial pressure. It could be customer or sales related. It could be
Right.
something with, their teenage kids. It's just all those things that small business owners struggle with. Aren't There's not just like it's just this thing. There's being a small business owner. Especially if you're married, there's everything affects everything, and so it just gives them an opportunity to do that, and that's been really cool. Most of them come really prepared, and you just really deep dive, kind of become their personal board of advisors. But it's pretty cool.
Well, when I had my first experience at being man in the middle was decades ago now, and I was scared to death. I was like,
Mm.
oh my gosh, that sounds so terrifying. And now I'm clamoring for the opportunity to be man in the middle because I realized that I only know what I know. And when you have unbiased, trusted advisors
Yeah,
that have context to your personal situation, they know about your family history. They know about your superpowers, your kryptonite, your blind spots. They have context around your business, around your family. They know what your vision is. They know what your mission statement is, your core values. These guys now are prepared to give you good insight that could change the trajectory of your
that's right.
decision.
That's right.
And so that man in the middle is a very sought after opportunity now because it gives you an opportunity to make a good decision. So, yeah,
Yeah.
you've just used that term for the first time, I think. And I just wanted to be sure our listeners knew exactly what it was. Do you ever remember a time for you that there was real stress related to your financial position?
Yes, absolutely. I think it was back in 2012. Um, it's right when I started building a team. So we had started getting some team leadership in place, and I'd actually, kind of last week's podcast. I think it was last week. We talked about chaos, and
Yeah, we
so I was
did.
kind of coming out of the chaos, frankly,
Mhm, mhm.
starting to get delegate appropriately, responsibly, and so the business was growing. We were making money, at least according to my checkbook balance, and I was paying myself, but it felt like we were living paycheck to paycheck. And our daughters were in their teen years, so our expenses were up a little bit, and we had money at the beginning of the month, but at the end of the month, I just wasn't for sure where it all just kind of went.
Mm.
And Son and I were not on the same page. We just did not have a good communication plan
Do you
of,
find that's typical
yeah,
with yeah, most folks? Yeah,
it's,
dive into that for a second because a lot of our listeners I've heard from them and they're like, dude, we just cannot get on the
yeah,
same page, right? We were raised in different environments. We have different filters. Our parents were different. Our experiences were different as children. And man, that in itself causes a lot of
a
stress.
lot.
But then you throw on the lack of resources
Yeah.
and that just magnifies that existing problem. So, what did y'all do to work through getting on the same page?
Yeah. We had the same thing, different. We came from different places in life and different experiences. We brought them, and we tried for a long time. Just Sonia's positioning for how she wants to do it, and I'm positioning for how I want to do it because that's what we know, it's what we're comfortable with. And what really worked for us was when we started using. I mean, for us, it was Financial Peace University. At the beginning, it was Crown Financial, and even before that, it was uh, I can't remember. It was for Crown was Business by the Book.
Mm,
So we started learning some things then, but nothing really clicked until Financial Peace University for us from the Ramsey folks. Um, and the reason it worked, there's other systems out there. That one worked great for us, but the reason that it worked because it wasn't mine and it wasn't hers.
mm,
It was a non biased. They in the sense that non biased meaning that it didn't favor me or it didn't favor her. It was someone else's process. And so Sonia wasn't. some of that business by the book and the Crown Financial stuff we went through was boring as all get out. And so it kind of worked for me because I'm kind of a nerd. But for her, I mean, it was just like she was just staring at a blank wall. It didn't click for her because she didn't enjoy it. And then the Financial Peace University stuff, when we did that, it was a video, and Dave Ramsey just does a really good job. I think he had probably coined the term edutainment, but he just did a really good job with educating, but it was also entertaining at the same time. And so for me, I could do without that. I'm like, I don't need the entertainment. Just give me the education. But for her, she needed the entertainment. It was important to her that it was a fun thing to do. And so that worked for us. And so we started on that process actually in 2012. This sounds terrible, but I bought back at that time in 2012, you couldn't buy your own, like, you couldn't go online and do what you can now. Like, you can just go online to a lot of these places and just buy the subscription, pay your money, and do it on your own. Back then, you had to do it in a class. And I was like, well, there wasn't a class being offered in our local hometown. And so I just went and bought the whole training package. It was like $400 or something. And we just took the DVDs. We dropped the kids off on Wednesday nights during the summer to youth group. And we drove over to the coffee shop and sat there with back when laptops had DVD players in them. Remember that?
Yeah. That
Popped the DVD in, and we put an earplug, one in each ear, that we shared. And we watched Financial Peace University, did the workbook back then for 13 weeks. And it was there's pros and cons to everything, every system, everything you use. It's not like anything's perfect. But if you find something that you can both agree on and that you can follow, and these systems too, they work for home. They also do a really good job. It helped me, preparing me, and doing a much better job with my business finances, because it was so much about money as mindset and behavior and habit. And if you can get those things in alignment, then whether it's your personal finances, whether it's your business finances. I love when people are like, well, I have my home finances in order, but I don't do any of that for my business. And I'm just like, what in the world? Right? I think in that case, like, you probably don't have a business. In that case, you probably just have a job that you do, because you're using it as, you're not being the best steward. You're not being good, but you're not being the best steward you can be by keeping track of what's going on and where the money's going and all that. So we did that. To make the story short, or to finish up, we did that. We went through that together, and that created like a really good baseline for us to work forward from. And we were very faithful at it. We did it. Matter of fact, it was really interesting. Within 90 days of just keeping track of our money, Sonia quit her job.
Wow.
And we actually had enough money. We just spent it on all kinds of stuff.
Managed it.
Yeah. We were not managing it well. And so she was able to then, at that time, our youngest was 12. And so our oldest was 17. So she actually started volunteering at the high school that they went to, just to be there, be close, take them to school, pick them up often, and to spend more time with them. That was important to her, something she wanted to do. And we never would have been able to do that had, I just managed the finances by what was in the checkbook, which a lot of people do. And so that was a game changer for us, financially, personally.
It gave you an opportunity to really plan, because you created a budget, you live by the budget, you established, the things that you were interested in doing. And it just shows you, and there's probably a lot of listeners out there today that are in the same position you and Sonia were in. If they manage their finances better, maybe, the spouse could not work as much or quit the job altogether, save more for college, be better prepared. We're called to be good stewards over the resources that we've been entrusted with, right? And so it's really mandated on us that we do that. Now, what would happen if neither of you really sense a a calling to that responsibility, then you just simply need to seek professional advice. Hire somebody, get an accountant, get a financial manager, get somebody that's really good at it. They can train you and teach you until you do have a comprehensive understanding of the finances to manage it long term. You're going to be managing finances your entire life. And so you need
Yeah.
to get a handle on that. Well, listen, I know last week we talked a little bit about priorities, and I think it goes hand in hand with talking about stress and things that affect us. I want to dive back into priorities just a little bit more and talking about how we can really decide what's important and work on that to eliminate some of the stressful peripheral things that distract us that really don't move the needle.
Right.
So let's dive back into priorities a little bit more.
Yeah. So I guess the first question I would have for you is I hear this all the time. You tell me what you think. Uh, we'll be talking in a meeting or you'll hear somebody say something effective, well, I got to get my priorities set or
Yeah.
straight.
Yeah.
And I think what we think of is that there are the word priorities, that there's multiple things that we can make most important. Do you think that's true or not?
Yeah. I think that ultimately you can only have a priority, singular. But I do think there's different pockets of our life that we can make things priority specific in nature related to that area of our life. For example, physical fitness, right? Uh, I know that eating is 80% of it. That's the priority, that I eat right. But I also know in my spiritual development that my quiet time in the morning is priority, right? So I have multiple priorities specific in nature to the topic. In my business, I feel like that I can have a singular priority for business. And so I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I think that in different segments of our life, we can have single priority. Does that make sense?
I think I understand, but let's there's some, maybe this will help as I talk through this, maybe it'll help clear up for
Okay.
me. Gary Keller wrote a book called The One Thing. It's on
Right.
my, top 8 books that I
Oh,
like.
yeah, it's a killer book.
It's a good book. It's called The One Thing. And he has a quote in there. He says, to be precise, the word is priority, not priorities.
Right.
And it originated in the 14th century from the Latin prior, meaning first.
Mhm.
Once you realize that the word priority should not be plural, you'll gain victory over all the areas of your life. That's his quote in the book.
Mhm.
And I think there's a lot of stress that we bring into our lives because we put everything as first. We try to think we can put everything as first importance. There's so I don't think you can have multiple priorities. And let me explain why I think that. Um, the idea of having multiple priorities would be similar. We talked about, I think, last podcast about multitasking,
Mhm.
that multitasking is really a productivity killer. If you think about multitasking, there's this dude, Dr. Clifford Nass. He's a psychology professor at Stanford, so he must be a smart dude, I'm guessing.
Mhm.
But anyway, he says that today's nonstop multitasking actually wastes more time than it saves. I mean, he's done all the tests and the research to prove it out. And we talked about deep work in the past. And I think that idea of doing a lot of things and trying to make them all important at the same time,
Mhm.
um, I don't think that works. I think what I'm learning, and even prepping for this podcast, I learned some things. I learned the idea of there is such a thing as first priority, second priority, third priority. I think that's might be what you're talking about. There's
It
areas of our,
is.
yeah,
Right.
there's areas of our
Right.
lives, but they're not the same.
No.
Um, and I thought about this idea of uh, building priority pillars for ourselves, and that idea of first, second, third. We need to decide what's first. And I think at different seasons of our life, we're so stressed out because we're trying to do everything equal.
Mm.
And it just doesn't work out well. And so we need to decide what's first and make sure that gets done, and then decide what's second and make sure that gets done. I think often we think of at least I have the idea of, well, if something is a priority, then all I do is spend my time on that thing. And that's not true. So is that what you meant? The idea of first priority, second priority, third priority?
Yeah, I didn't articulate it as masterfully as you just did. That was awesome. Right now I've got a framework that I can go on. But yes, that's exactly what I'm meaning. But let's get into the specifics for a second. That's a real conundrum for a lot of business people today because I hear it every single day. They say, "Oh, my family's priority."
Yeah.
And there's such limited time. How do we work through that? Like, I think in their heart, they really want their family to be priority. How can we build the boundaries? How can we establish the amount of hours that we're going to work to be successful and not let that bleed over into family time? Like, how do we get our arms around our actions aligning with our verbiage?
Let's pick on you for a moment. Let's actually walk through the model we just talked about. What is first priority for you?
God is priority for me in my
Okay.
life,
So
first
you
and
say
foremost.
that.
Yes.
How does that show up in your life?
Yeah, it shows up daily. I do have a very stringent guidelines related to my prayer life, meditation, scripture reading. Um, I've incorporated it into every area of my life. I get opportunities to share my faith through normal conversation. It's not just that 1 hour every morning and I'm done. I've adopted it. People ask me oftentimes, how do you separate your faith life from your business life and your personal life? I said, you don't.
You don't.
I am who I am. I've incorporated my faith into my life. It's who I am as an individual. Now I've got many shortcomings. I got a long way to go. Many failures in my life. Many opportunities to repent on a regular basis. But that is the most.
That's your first priority.
That's my first priority.
What's your second priority?
Robin.
How does that show up? How does that manifest itself in
Yeah,
your life?
that's where we reach a place that sometimes my verbiage is not in alignment with my actions, right? Because here's the thing, I'm just being honest on this
Yeah.
podcast. I love to work. Like, I love what I do. And I've worked probably way more than I should have over the course of my career, but it's caused me some real problems in my relationship with Robin because Robin wants me to turn it on at a certain time, turn it off at a certain time. And I'm just honest, Wally, that's hard for me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I have been since I was 18. I'll be 63 in March. I love to work. Like, I get energized. I'm motivated. I love to do it. I love to make money because money is a tool, and I love to buy nice things for my family. I love to help other people. I want to leave a legacy. Hopefully, I'm generous at heart, but it takes resources to do that. And building a successful company is hard to do from 9 a.m. to 3:30 in the afternoon or 4 o'clock. So I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm saying it's difficult, and I've owned a number of businesses over the course of my life, and that's where the problem, the stress comes in, the priorities getting skewed, and I got to be careful. When I say she's second, uh, sometimes Robin will remind me, "No, work is second. I'm third," and I'm like, "Well, that stung, Robin." And she's like, "Well, I mean, your actions speak to what's important." And so we've been married 43 years. Most of it's been happily, but it's caused a little bit of conflict along the way, just to be totally honest.
I appreciate that. So, but the question, I appreciate you sharing all that. I really do. But to your own admission, if Robin is priority number two, she's your second priority pillar.
Right.
I understand all the challenges with that.
Sure.
But how does her being second pillar priority in your life show up? What do you do to make her
Yeah.
second priority?
Yeah, yeah, I take her out on dates, I spend time with her, we eat meals together, we go to bed at the same time every night together, we do a lot of entertainment, we entertain folks together, we go to church and worship together. We do spend a lot of time doing things together, right, in our
Right.
relationship. I always consult her on things that we've agreed in our marriage, in our relationship. Now, I don't consult her everything in business because she doesn't want me to do that, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And so, but the things that are important to her, I make sure that I consult with her on those things. And so I feel like, even to her admission, I do a good job with that. The places that I don't do good is sometimes I'll go outside the boundaries in regards to the hours that I work, and it makes her not feel like second priority.
Yeah. But you've decided that she is, and you work toward that, right? That's it.
Yes.
Yeah. That's exactly what you do.
Yes.
I
Correct.
think the challenge is when we get so stressed out
Yeah.
and
I'm getting stressed right now talking about it, Wally, just so you know. So,
but
I'm
I
like,
think
oh man, I need to go to her when I get off this podcast. Go, I got to spend some time with you. So yeah, but there's this, the tension, and I want to encourage our listeners today. If you're not feeling the tension like I'm describing it, you're probably not paying attention.
Mm,
I would suggest that you lean into the tension, because if you're not feeling that, I promise you, you're probably not paying attention.
that's really good. So I'm assuming your third pillar of priority would be what? I guess I don't want to assume. I'm going to ask you.
Yeah. Well, my third would be my kids and grandkids, and then my business, and then my church, and then civic responsibilities. That's kind of
So
the order.
yeah. So let me ask you this question, because this is where I get confused. I agree with you, and I would say the same thing. But yeah, I know that I spend way more time on pillar number 4, which is work, than I do pillar number 3, which is like my kids, my grandkids, my friends.
We're in
And
a little different stage of life, though. Our kids are grown and gone, right? My youngest daughter's been
well,
out of the
I
house
get that.
17
I get it.
years, and
But hang
so
on. Right. I get it. I get it's different. It doesn't matter.
for the place that I'm in, I feel like that's still the third priority.
So my question is, it's third priority, but so you can have something that we can have something that's a priority that we actually spend less time on something else that's a less priority pillar.
Yes.
That seems
Well,
counterintuitive, doesn't it?
no, it doesn't, because you're equating value of
With time.
priority to time.
That a lot of us do, don't we? Because you
Yeah.
actually say, well, you
Yeah.
value what you spend your time on.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. But I don't know that I'd have to think through this. This episode's better for me than anybody. It's making my own episode's making me think through what I'm saying. But yeah, I wonder if there's different measurements, though, because as I'm saying this now, it's impossible for me to spend more time with my 40-year-old children and
Yeah,
grandchildren that don't live in my house. And so I don't want to move them out of the priority list,
right.
but I don't know that we can equate what's important to us to the time spent, because my
Directly to
kids.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. I'm with you.
yeah.
I agree with that. I don't think that that's a fair, but we often do.
We do. We do. And I've never really thought of it until this moment. But
I can see the smoke coming out of your ears.
yeah, yeah, it is. I'm thinking
Your
through
wheels are
this,
turning.
because I'm like, do I really value them, or am I just speaking that? But no, the truth is I do. I mean, I love my kids unconditionally. My grandkids, I take a bullet for them today.
So the priority side of that, if we're just breaking this down here,
Yeah,
and you say that God is priority pillar 1
sure,
for you,
sure.
Robin's number 2, your kids and your grandkids are number 3. What that means, I think, even though you spend more time on 4,
Right.
and I do too,
Sure.
which is work,
Right.
but 3 is more important. I am actually going to put, because it's first, second, third, fourth, right? I'm going to put that third pillar of that relationship with my kids and my grandkids. When I think about organizing my time, I may spend more time on pillar number 4,
Mhm.
but when I organize my time, I'm going to make sure that pillar number 3 happens.
Yeah, that I don't miss anything that's
Yeah.
important, right?
Yeah.
I think that's
Exactly.
where we get in trouble when we start missing big moments that matter for the sake of work. Now work has become the priority number 3 instead of the kids or
There you
grandkids,
go.
right? And so, yeah, I like the way you position that.
Yeah, that's really good. Wow, that was fun to work through, man. That was a good little exercise. So, Big A, when we get stressed out, we've talked about financial stresses as a kind of a stress zone. Talked about our priority and that being stress zones. What about unhealthy relationships
Mm,
being a stress zone?
yeah, I think it can be. This is something that Robin and I have done a lot of work on in dealing with relationships. And this is going to sound cold. I'll just go ahead and get it out there. I've thrown myself under the bus this whole episode, so I might as well not stop now. But Robin and I have done a lot of work on relationships. And as we've gotten older, we've become very, very selective of our relationships. And we don't want naysayers. We don't want a lot of gossip. We don't want negative talk. Um, there's certainly family members you have to be around, right? We didn't choose our families, but we do choose our friends. And I know in our small group, we've been meeting the same small group for almost 20 years, the
Wow,
same 10
that's great.
couples. Yeah, every for 20 years. And one or two other couples have tried to join that group over the years. And we learn pretty quick whether they're going to fit in with this group or not, because there's not a lot of negative talk. There's always encouragement. There's a lot of empathy and compassion. People really care about each other deeply. And when this negative talk starts or gossip starts, it's like, uh-oh, we're fixing to ship you out. That's just not going to work. And so unhealthy relationships, quite honestly, is probably second in line to me for stress uh, over the things that we've already talked about. So, yeah, unhealthy relationships can be very stressful.
There's lots of different kinds of unhealthy relationships that I've either observed or experienced
Yeah.
over time. Um, the healthy ones build us up, and the unhealthy ones are the ones that tear us down and create those just crazy amounts of stress in our lives. And it could be an employee that we've got that just we have an unhealthy relationship with, or they have an unhealthy relationship to us or the business. Reality is sometimes we find ourselves, somebody might be listening to this right today and they're like, if I'm honest, like kind of have an unhealthy relationship with my wife right now. Or I hear this way more than I would like to, is that a guy will say, yeah, my kids, now my daughter's now 15 and she goes in her room, she closes the door, and we don't hear from her all night long. And should never talk to each other and stuff. And I'm just like, this hurts me to the core, because that's really at the base layer, an unhealthy relationship. And I, I just think that those types of things create so much stress, even if it's not what you would say stress that shows itself, right? Like cross relationships but it eats us up inside, that we know something shouldn't be that way. Like we know,
Right.
but maybe we just don't know what to do about it. And I think for a lot of people, that's kind of where it is.
Wally, I'm going to touch on this just for a second. I'm not a marriage counselor by any stretch of the imagination. Very thankful Robin and I have enjoyed 40 plus years of marriage. And I want to encourage the people listening today to explore what the possibilities are at doing what I'm about to share. And I wasn't very good at this early in my marriage, and it may still be too early for some of you to approach it like this. I used to argue with Robin to win because I'm a debater and I wanted my way. I was selfish, the first few decades of our marriage. We argue now for resolution. And now we argue just like we're talking. You and I are talking right now. This is the way Robin and I argue. I refuse to yell and holler and slam doors and get mad. You always say things you regret. You can't take it back. And then when you try to take it back, the scar is still there. And so we sit down. But I do things pretty unorthodox as a rule anyway. But this is one thing is when things are really, really good between us, is when I go to her with a situation that could be controversial.
Mm.
I'll go to Robin when things are really good and say, I've been really thinking through this. There's a situation that came up a couple of weeks ago, and I want to tell you how that made me feel. Maybe I misunderstood it. Uh, Please give clarity or more context so I'll understand. Because if you're trying to resolve these things in the heat of the battle, all you want to do is win. You just want to hurt the other person. And so that unhealthy relationship will become more unhealthy the harder you push in that moment. So I want to encourage the listeners just to think through what it would look like if you could talk when you're not upset, when you're not angry, and just say, give me more clarity around this particular topic. I think we've worked out more in our marriage by doing that than the previous 2 or 3 decades put together. Maybe that just comes with time. Maybe new marriages can't do that, but it's something to consider when you're working through an unhealthy relationship with your spouse.
Yeah, man, that's so good. Thank you for sharing that. I know I mentioned this a little bit earlier about when it comes to children and having some unhealthy relationships there. And I gave one example, and there's probably a million more. And I think what's really important that we're getting at here is that when you have stress in relationships, whether it's your wife, your children, we're going to talk about business and employees and partners in a second here. I think what we're really doing is asking our listeners to focus on what you can control, because at the end of the day, we can't control anybody else. And you had mentioned when you were talking about your relationship early on with Robin that you fought to win, and that's
Yeah,
trying to control somebody else. And when we have children and maybe we haven't done all the things, our kids are now teenagers or whatever the case is, and we're looking at it going, oh man, like I should have done some things different maybe. And I'm learning and I'm like, wow, yeah, okay, this is unhealthy. I got to do something. I should do something about it. Well, do something about it. That's what you can control. It'd be such a shame, right? For us, I think any of us to know that there's some difference we can make, but maybe we don't want the conflict. Maybe we feel tired. Maybe we don't know what to do. And I think there's plenty of opportunities out there with books and with seeking some counseling. I know you've done counseling in the past yourself and marriage. I have as well. Sonia and I have
sure.
seen a counselor in the past, and
Well, you know where the biggest benefit is, though, and we deal with it every single day, is the mastermind. I mean, it's helped me more in my family relationship, my children, because there's people that bring different experiences. There's people that have similar age kids. There's people that are in demographics that you're in. And they can go, you know what? I tried this and it failed miserably, but we tried this and it was unbelievable how it worked. And it's like, I didn't even know that was a
yeah, you
thing.
get these
Like,
great
I didn't even
nuggets.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, I didn't even know you could try that. Like, I didn't even know to know that. And that's the reason that we keep promoting Iron Sharpens Iron Mastermind. Other people are dealing with the exact same
Yeah.
thing you are every single day. Yet we isolate ourselves and we go to our spouse and we go, okay, what do we do now with little Billy or Susie? And it's like, I have no idea. And it's like, if I hit them any harder, they're going to arrest me for child abuse. So I can't spank them anymore. I can't put them in the corner anymore. Like, I don't know what else to do. And somebody says, hey, this is what we tried with our little guy, and it worked amazing. And I was like, man, they have saved me so many times, giving me advice. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about these peer advisory groups. Being in the group has helped me make so many decisions in every facet of my life. but especially around family and especially around business.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's just really been good for me.
Yeah. Man.
Well, I want to tell you what the probably next level of stress has been for me throughout my career is in partnerships. Uh, Listen, there's nothing better when you got a great partner, nothing better. And there is nothing worse when you have a bad
Amen to
partner.
that.
But I want to say a couple of things around that. Boy, I'm going to really, really maybe offend a few people with this statement. I don't mean to, but I will say it. Even the best partnership arrangements I've ever had has created 50% of my
Mm.
stress. Even the best ones. Not that they're bad, they're different. They're different people. They have different objectives. They have different goals. They have different values. They have different relationships with their spouse. They have kids that are going to impact their decision. Strategically, long term, their vision is different. And you try to meld those together with another individual, it creates a level of stress. We can't get away from that. It just happens in the majority of partnerships. Now, the advice that I can give you that I've done a number of times is really talk through those things and have an action plan. If that happens, this is what we're going to do. So the people understand the rules of the game before you get involved. And so I think the more time you can spend on the front end making adequate preparation for decisions ahead of time, it eliminates the vast majority of that stress. Where people get in trouble is they go into business with a buddy and they haven't talked through it. And a year and a half, 2 years in, they start finding out their differences and they have no rules, they have no plan whatsoever, and they don't know the rules of the game. So, yeah, be mindful if you're thinking about a partnership. If you're in a partnership, do the work, do your due diligence up front. You can eliminate a lot of the stress.
Yeah, those stresses in partnerships with a healthy relationship, those some of those stresses are still there. But man, you get an unhealthy relationship in a partnership,
It's bad. Yep.
man,
Yep.
that creates all kinds of, and the ripple down effect from that.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah.
ooh. So yeah, definitely do and here's the thing. If you haven't already done that, you find yourself in a situation where you're in a partnership and you're like, uh-oh, just rewind a little bit and start taking the steps to get it figured out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Don't listen to this and not go take action
Right. 100%.
because at some point it's going to bite you. What is it they say is love is grand, divorce is 50 grand. Well, it's the same way in a partnership, right? You go in business with your best friend and it's going to cost you 50 grand to get out of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, be mindful of it. And it can be awesome if you do the work.
Yeah. So yeah, those unhealthy relationships, focus on what you can control and do the work that's required and necessary. And you'll definitely get some benefit from that as you grow those relationships going forward. Um, Last thing I want to bring up from a kind of a stress zone, if you will, is we've talked about this a number of times in different ways on the podcast, but when it comes to personal growth,
Mm,
um, I think one of the most important things we can do is make sure that we're in a good place ourselves in order to influence and have the most impact that we can on others. But there's a lot of struggles that come with personal growth, and when we don't have that growth mindset, and we're not executing or having good routines and good habits around uh, personal growth, whether that's with not eating correctly or stress eating or drinking too much alcohol or any alcohol at all. um, Masturbation and porn can become real problems and cause a lot of stress. um, and being lazy, just not making physical activity an important priority pillar for yourself. So what would you say, Big A, to these types of personal development, personal growth, this stress zone that you've
yeah.
experienced either for yourself or what you've seen in other guys?
Yeah. Two funny stories. One is I don't know, 25 years ago, when I was invited to be in the Eagles mastermind, I walked in and they said, "We read a book every month." And I was like, "I don't like to read." And one of the guys said, "I don't care if you like to read or not, just start reading. You don't wake up smarter tomorrow, right? There's got to be personal development along the way. And you're just not going to grow through osmosis." Physically, I loved it when I interviewed a guy about, I don't know, 5 years ago, Lee Cockrell. He was one of the executives with Disney. And Lee said that the most important thing he could do for his family or Disney was to take care of himself. He
Mm,
said he works out 7 days a week. He's still the same size he was when he graduated from college.
mm,
He said, "There's no way for me to manage 20,000 employees if I'm physically in bad shape." He said, "I owe it to my family because I've got to have the energy
yeah.
to maintain a healthy lifestyle for my wife and for my kids and my grandkids." And he said, "The best thing I could do from a personal growth standpoint is take care of myself." And so I want to encourage those that have set that on the sideline and think you don't have time. If you reorient your thinking, it's probably an obligation and a responsibility that we have in leading our families. Listen, I hope this episode on stress has been helpful to you. I don't think it's possible to escape stress, but if we really think through the things that we should be doing in setting out these pillars of priority, right? Really think through what the things are that is important to you. Uh, Really create the budget that Wally was talking about earlier. Do some activity that would be helpful to strengthen your abilities to lead your team, lead your family, lead your business financially. Is going to really eliminate a lot of the stress that you've experienced. If you think about the relationships that you have and really sit down with your spouse and think through, is this really helping us get to where we want to go? Is it really helping our family achieve and the goals and the dreams that we want? Is this good for my mindset? Are these people in my life really disallowing us from going to the next level, or is it helping us to get where we want to go? And then just think about a plan for your personal growth. Just think about, what is it that I can do that would be a catalyst that would take me to the next level? You know, we have a huge responsibility leading our families, and I want to encourage you today to think through this so that we can eradicate some of the stress in our life, so that we can have the life that we're all trying to achieve. And that's how to live a very successful and significant life as we go on this journey. Hope you've enjoyed this episode today, and I can't wait to see you next week.